Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And on this episode, we're going to talk a little Denver Broncos. You know, they made it to the AFC Championship game, and I know they're looking to make it further next year. And we're also going to talk a little AFC South free agency as well. But I'm not doing this by myself. I have a special guest with me. I have former Denver Bronco and Super Bowl champion Ryan Harris. What's going on, man?
What's up, Mike? Great to be with you and your fans, and great job on your show, man. I love it.
Thank you, man. Greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated. Of course, on this episode, we had some big news drop when it came to the Denver Broncos. We're going to get into that and the AFC South, like I mentioned. And we do also have the mailbag at the end of the show. But, you know, of course, you didn't come here to hear me blabber about what we're going to do. We got to do it, right? So, of course, the first thing to talk about, the big trade, Jaylen Waddle to the Broncos. I mean, you've got just the details of it. You've got the Dolphins, of course, getting Jaylen Waddle. You got 2026 fourth round pick that goes to Denver as well. The Dolphins get Denver's 2026 first round pick, which is number 30, a third round pick, number 94, and a fourth round pick, number 130. What were your thoughts on this trade when you saw it come across?
A declaration by the Broncos that they're here to win the Super Bowl this year. They had tremendous success. Nobody believed them last year they would be in the AFC Championship game, let alone competing for that Super Bowl. And with Bo Nix's injury, they got better. And Mike, you know, as a player, you want to enter into the facility with more excitement from the last year. And this deal does that. You have speed now with Jaylen Waddle, and the kind of speed that makes people just get distracted for a split second on defense, right? And if you're using him in a jet sweep motion to the right and running left, and there's going to be a little bit more space there. So there's about 30% more offense with Jaylen Waddle on the team. Is going to add to the production of Bo Nix, Cortland Sutton, J.K. Dobbins, and R.J. Harvey, the running backs. So this is a team that's competing for a Super Bowl, and they believe they can win it.
All right. You don't think it's too much given for him, or do you think it's, hey, you gotta take the risk to get the reward?
Well, you're not going to get a player of his quality at 30th overall, and they needed a speed receiver that can really line up anywhere and run all the routes. I mean, Jaylen Waddle has every route tree that a receiver wants. He's also used to tough coaching, you know, coming from Nick Saban in Alabama, winning a national championship there. So he understands what it takes. And think about this, Mike. Of all the problems that Miami has had over the last couple of years, his name hasn't come up once, right? He is under the radar. He is making sure that he gets his work done. He stays elite. And for him, he's got to be thrilled to be at a contender with a coach like Sean Payton and some of the pieces that they have around them, including that Denver defense.
Definitely. Of course, and also his best friend or one of his good friends is Patrick Surtain. So that'll be interesting to see those battles in practice. Of course, you know, that wasn't the only thing or the only news that happened this offseason with the Broncos. Many talked about the news of them not really making any offseason moves, you know, besides this one. You know, really signing back guys like, you know, you got Alex Singleton, you bring him back for 2 years, $15.5 million. You got Justin Strawn, that linebacker, you bring him back 3 years, $18 million. You got tight end Adam Trotman. You've got Alex.
Chesky is a hard one.
Thank you. Because I couldn't say that last. I was trying hard. And then you got Jaleel Laughlin. And you've got, you know, a tender on Jaquan McMillan as well for a second-round tender there. But, you know, did you expect them to be as quiet, you know, minus this trade?
I did. You know, you never want to win free agency. If you win free agency, that means your team did really bad. And you probably had bad drafts, right? I mean, you don't want to get three marquee players to come in the offseason, and you don't want to have $70 million in cap space because you want to re-sign your draft picks. This is a team that's built solid top to bottom. You know, you might want to get another quarterback somewhere, either in free agency, at the cut deadline, after the cuts in preseason. But the Broncos, they're methodical and playing for the Chiefs. And when I was at the Texans, that's what you want to do. You want to have your marquee players be guys that you drafted. It helps the cap. It also helps the culture in the locker room. And so I love what they did. I mean, J.K. Dobbins coming back, that's huge. He's a guy who has a veteran experience, has not been able to stay healthy. So this is kind of his last year to prove he can stay healthy. I recommend more yoga. But it's something where now guys who've performed, the guys who've led on your team, who've been in the locker room. You bring that consistency. And now with adding Jaylen Waddle, you're able to grow not only the offense, but most of the offense is growing together. They're taking leaps together. So that's something where I think the Broncos are really, really under the radar with their moves, because you want to be re-signing players who are on your roster, and that's exactly what they did.
Exactly. So, of course, one player they did let go this offseason, which was Dre Greenlaw. He was a big signing last offseason, 3 years, $31.5 million contract. And they let him go this offseason, saves them $8.2 million versus the cap. But, am I alone in feeling kind of disappointed in how things ended or worked out for him there, or disappointed in maybe the production there?
You're not alone. I mean, and I think Greenlaw would tell you that himself. I mean, Dre's a fantastic player. I mean, how brutal to be jogging on to the Super Bowl field and pop your Achilles. I don't think that – I don't know if there's a more brutal injury than that. There's no question when he's healthy, he's a fantastic linebacker. He's got that hit stick in him. But let's be clear, the linebacker position is the earliest to retire. It's the earliest to age because of what you're required to do. And when it comes to Dre Greenlaw, he just was not healthy long enough and frequent enough. So at a time when you need guys to be healthy and different guys, I mean, think about this. Contrast to Dre Greenlaw, Alex Singleton survived cancer this season, missed a game, and came back. You know what I'm saying? Like he had cancer and they had surgery on it, and he came back. And Dre Greenlaw couldn't put together a full season. So I think the contrast there on the team definitely hurt Greenlaw. And, again, yoga is important, man. You got to be able to stretch those ligaments and be healthy. As much power and speed you have, it doesn't matter if all those muscles aren't functioning together. So he's got to figure out something different to do. And I've been there as a player where you're thinking, man, it's all everybody else. Now you're playing a role in this as well. So whatever his offseason regimen is, he has to add or subtract from it so that he's prepared to go the 17 games of a regular season over 18 weeks. And he just has not been able to do that over the past 2 seasons.
Yeah, definitely got to get the kick the injury bug for sure. He had that in San Francisco as well. Just got covered up a little bit with Mr. Fred Warner out there. I will say that definitely the Broncos, even with trading these picks, they still have 7 picks in the draft. They got one in the second round, that's theirs. They got 2 in the second, 2 in the fourth round. That's 1 from the Saints and 1 from the Dolphins. They've got a round 5 pick, that's theirs. They got 3 7th-round picks that are 2 compensatory picks and 1 original pick. So with all those picks and not having a first-round pick, not having a 3rd-round pick, but having some available picks, where do you expect them to kind of maybe add or try to look to grow this team?
I think you're going to see them take a linebacker early on just to get some depth there, get a guy in the system, and somebody who you can depend on down the road. I mean, one of the re-signees, Justin Cernad, I mean, he was kind of a special teams guy until he was a starter because of Dre Greenlaw. So you want to get that kind of guy probably out of the SEC or the Big Ten, somebody who's played some big-time football, been in some playoffs, understands speed and understands how to thump, how to not waste steps. But I'll tell you what else, Mike, this draft is deep at the tight end position. I mean, a guy like Eli Raridan out of Notre Dame, he might be there in the 4th round. And with 2 4th-round picks, you're able to trade up if you need to. So I think you're going to see linebacker, tight end, and then maybe some tackle later on and some other areas to shore up the future. But the Broncos are doing it from a position of strength. They can take the best player available every round that they have picks in. And that's where you want to be if you're a franchise. It's really a nod to Sean Payton, the head coach, and George Payton, the GM, for building this roster this way, making this deal for Waddle, and getting and developing players. I mean, how rare is that these days? You got about 5 or 6 programs in the NFL that actually develop players, and that's something that the Broncos have been doing under the nose of the NFL.
Definitely have been. One place that is looking to develop players, but they did go on a spending spree, which I'm switching over to the AFC South in case you didn't catch me. That would be the Tennessee Titans. They definitely went on a spending spree. $270 million to major signees this offseason. And let me just give you a rundown. Wan'Dale Robinson, 4 years, $70+ million. Defensive lineman John Franklin Myers, who I know you're familiar with, 3 years, $63 million. Alontae Taylor, 3 years, $58 to $60 million. Cordell Flott from the Giants, 3 years, $45 million, and the list goes on and on in terms of the players they brought in. They brought in 3 corners. They brought in offensive linemen. They just signed another offensive lineman from the Los Angeles Chargers like 2 hours before this show started. So they are definitely putting their money where their mouth is in terms of trying to create a culture, create a team, and trying to flip over this roster. Now, I know you said previously about, teams and, bad drafts and things like that or whatever. With the Tennessee Titans, haven't necessarily been able to maintain in terms of, throughout with the draft and keeping draft picks. So here is the result of that. So I know spending a lot of money, blending free agency, not necessarily the greatest thing or the thing you want to do. However, I will say the New England Patriots, they won free agency a lot last year and ended up going to the Super Bowl. Now, no slight to any Denver Broncos fans. Just want to say that ahead of time. But, what do you think of what they did this offseason to kind of attack the offseason and basically, I guess, put money towards trying to be better?
Well, they had to do it. The AFC South is an increasingly competitive division. It might be the second most competitive division outside the AFC West in the AFC, maybe the AFC North, depending on what happens there with Baltimore. But, I mean, you got to look at it from this perspective. You got to beat the Jaguars. Between the Jaguars and Colts, you got to beat them twice. And with the Daniel Jones injury last year, I don't know that people got an accurate description of what that division looks like in the AFC. And especially for Tennessee, you have a lot of young players that didn't know how to win. So you have to go out and get veterans who have experience, veterans who know how to win, know how to practice, teach these young cats how to practice, how to show up, how to take notes in meetings, things like that. So they had to do it. And they have a great quarterback in Cam Ward. And that's something where I think Cam Ward is really going to have a breakout second season here. He got banged up a lot. He had some experience, but he also beat the Chiefs down the stretch when the Chiefs had to win a football game to stay playoff eligible, right? So he knows that competition. Now you've got some pieces around him. You added some pieces on defense. This Tennessee Titans team is going to be more competitive than people think, but their moves are indicative of what they have to do to stay competitive in the AFC South. And I still like the Jaguars there coming out and being a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about them. But one other thing I just want to mention, John Franklin Myers and Jeff Simmons together.
Ooh.
How scary is that?
You might have 2 defensive tackles together. They might get 30 sacks. And Mike, if you got a defensive tackle that can get 5 sacks in a season, that's going to change games. Not to mention their run-stopping ability. And John Franklin Myers has just displayed an incredible professionalism. He's chosen to master his craft. He's gotten the payday to pay that off. But it's something where you really are going to have a problem if you're facing the Titans. I'll tell you right now, run to the edges because you're not going to get in the middle. And provided they stay healthy, that's how you lower the point total to help your offense, right? That's where you can really start to say, okay, now we can win games 21-17. We can win games 14-10 because of that defense. And Jeffrey Simmons is going to have a little bit more one-on-ones, which means I anticipate an increased production for him. So Titans fans, you got to be happy. Your team went out and spent money to get some great veterans to accentuate and supplement your quality players on offense and defense. You still got the draft coming up.
Right. And then draft, of course, everyone's talking about Jeremiah Love potentially landing in Nashville. Now, I will throw one other thing out there as well, just about that. Yep. I already knew the connect there for sure. But yeah, definitely, it's going to be interesting just to see what all they do. And big thing there, a lot of the players they brought in, all had connections to either Brian Daboll or to Robert Saleh. So that's a big thing there in terms of the connection there with the players they're bringing in. Switching over to the Jaguars, of course, Jaguars, moving on into 2026, they had a couple decisions to make. They decided not to sign back Travis Etienne and Devin Lloyd. So those 2 guys are gone. But they do bring in Chris Rodriguez at the running back position, which I think is an interesting signing because when he got more opportunities with the Commanders, he actually had 500 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns with 112 carries. So that's not necessarily bad. 4.9 yard per average rushing. So with that being said, did it kind of surprise you they didn't bring those 2 guys back, or at least one of those guys back, or did you kind of expect them to move on a different way?
I expected them to make some different changes. And one of the things, too, you have to be able to have an offense that demands the type of running game you need, right? With Rodriguez, you're running between the tackles, you're running on the edge of the tackles. Like, you're not going to be doing some of the now the Christian McCaffrey stuff, as I call it, right? He's out in the slot, now he's back, or he's in the backfield, he's out to the slot, he's actually slot receiver. So you really got to force that issue. But the biggest thing for the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence has to decide that he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. That's the only difference. I mean, his consistency is something that has to be at a higher level, especially in the playoffs. And when you talk about, yes, he's had success, but there's a difference between very good and great in the NFL. And right now, Trevor Lawrence is very good. And that's what the Jaguars will be until he decides to do some different things, to make some tighter decisions, and really to be that dynamic player we've been waiting for him to be since he came into the NFL. He's had tremendous experience now. Experience is not the issue. I think he's got one of the best offensive coordinators in Shane Waldron over there. But they got to make sure that's an individual decision. The Jaguars will go as far as he lets them, and he has to decide, Trevor Lawrence, that he's going to win a Super Bowl, and the Jaguars might just do it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, of course, I do have to ask you about the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, they had some decisions this offseason. They decided to bring back Daniel Jones. They put the transition tag, then brought him back with a 2-year deal, but really it's like a 1-year deal with an extension probably next year if he plays well. Alec Pierce on a monster free agent deal. And then they let go of Michael Pittman Jr., which, that's interesting because, Alec Pierce has been known as the deep ball guy. But now they're probably going to have to depend on him to run the whole route tree. So what did you think of their decisions there to, basically put the farm on Alec Pierce and then, kind of let him be the leader of that wide receiver room?
Well, the leader in Pierce, that's a great call. He's a fantastic receiver. He can learn more, no question about it. But the big thing is that they re-signed Danny Dimes. I mean, he was on an MVP tear there for a little bit, even though they ended up not giving it to Sam Darnold, who should have won the MVP. But Daniel Jones is the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. And he showed that at his time there last season before his injury at the Colts. Now, you also got to get a backup. You got to get a backup quarterback that the team believes in. So that's something that they're going to have to do. I'd anticipate them doing that in the draft. But this is something where, again, you have the quarterback. They made Jonathan Taylor look younger. I mean, how long has it been, Mike, since we've seen an offense make a running back look younger? I mean, Jonathan Taylor was running like he was a rookie again. And so there's an excitement there at the Colts. And Daniel Jones can be that guy. He just, not a lot of quarterbacks have been successful at the Giants, right? And you're starting to see whether it's Sam Darnold winning the Super Bowl, Baker Mayfield keeping the Buccaneers competitive. I mean, teams get things wrong all the time, especially bad teams. And so Daniel Jones finally has a team in which that believes in him. His teammates believe in him. And now with his recovery and him healthy, they got a shot to win the AFC South. And that's, again, why the Titans had to make those moves, right? Because you got the Colts are right there. The Jaguars are there. I mean, you might have 3 teams from the AFC South go to the playoffs, provided Houston figures out what's going on there with their quarterback. So I really like what the Colts are doing. It's measured success, and I'm happy for the city of Indianapolis. I mean, they haven't had a good, consistent run, and to see that excitement there in Indianapolis was fun to see.
Definitely. I got one last question for you. As far as the Houston Texans, of course, the talk is about CJ Stroud. However, the offensive line has been a major point of contention for a lot of people. This offseason, they went out and signed Braden Smith from the Colts for a 2-year deal. They just signed Wyatt Teller from the Cleveland Browns. And, Ed Ingram at 3-year extension. Ursery's still there at tackle. They've got a few guys they brought in. What do you think of what they've kind of done to kind of solidify up front and hopefully not have as much turnover in the next couple of years as well, to maybe make CJ Stroud as comfortable as possible in the pocket and maybe make things a little easier for him?
Well, you got to invest in your offensive line. I mean, you want to win a Super Bowl, you have to have knowledgeable offensive linemen who are capable. But let's be clear, it can't be the offensive line every year without firing coaches, right? If you're not developing offensive linemen, which is, in my opinion, one of the easiest positions to teach technique if you know what you're doing, you have a coaching problem, not a player problem, right? One of their guards just went out and signed a big old bag too. And so you got some guys developing, but not as a unit. And so that's a coaching issue, not a player's issue. And then CJ Stroud, I hope he sees a mental performance coach because he has to get a checkup from the neck up. There is no way with his skill that this inconsistency should be as prevalent in his game as it is. And even 2 years ago, I called the game, his first playoff game. And if you remember, he kind of had this weird fumble in the game and then kind of turned it on. He has to understand, yes, every game is just a game. And the playoffs, you have to play at a different level. You have to separate yourself. You have to be Superman for your team. And whether that's, I think about when I played with Peyton Manning, he got up and dodged a sack and got up and ran for a first down, right? So those are the kinds of things that you need your quarterback to do within their tool set that CJ Stroud just has not reached yet. It's as if he hesitates. It's like he's slowing down too much when the games get big, and that's when you need to speed things up. So if I'm the coaching staff there at the Texans, I'm making sure we got a mental performance coach, and that guy's first job, guy or gal's first job, is to go and get CJ Stroud in his head right, because he's got way too much talent to be putting the performances in that he has, and that team, that city, that they're depending on him. And at the same time, if you get a competitive Texans team, I mean, you might have a division winner there at 9-7 who goes to the AFC Championship game, right, in the AFC South. So it's an incredible division, a tremendous opportunity for every team in the division. But when it comes to the Texans, the story is CJ Stroud and his mental process to have great games, not good.
Definitely. Well, Ryan, man, hey, thank you for going through the AFC South and talking a little Denver Broncos with me. If you can, tell everyone where they can find you on social media and any other things that you are working on, sir.
Yep. Catch me at Ryan Harris _68 on Instagram and Twitter. And check out my website, ryanharris68.com. Do a lot of keynote speaking. So if you need your company to get motivated and get some of the tools that make people successful, give me a shout.
Yes, sir. Thank you again for coming on the show, man. I will be in touch.
See you soon, Mike.
Yes, sir. That was Mr. Ryan Harris on the show. Thank him again for coming on the show and giving us his expertise in, of course, the AFC South and the Denver Broncos. But, of course, we're not getting ready to end this show just yet. We do have a new addition to the show. That would be the AFC South Mailbag. And we got a few questions for you. We're going to start it off with this question from Bobby W. from Wooster, Ohio. How is Jacksonville going to do this year? That is a big question that not everyone knows. Now, I will say Jacksonville played really well down the stretch, won the AFC South, made it to the playoffs, didn't finish the way they'd like to, but there is momentum going there. However, what I will tell you is that in the past, they've had momentum and going to the next season and not finished well that next season. So my thing to watch for them is watching if they're able to continue that momentum going, because in the past, of course, like I mentioned, they have not been able to, and had pretty much a subpar season. So we'll definitely see what happens and how they're able to carry forward. Now, do I think they have the ability to do so? Yes, absolutely. They have the ability to be successful and win the AFC South again. The thing is, do the ghosts of the past come back, or do they move forward in the new future with Liam Cohen and win games and make it back to the playoffs? We'll see what happens. But thank you, Bobby, for that question. All right, our next question is, what is the ceiling for the Tennessee Titans? That's from Bryce L. from Clarksville, Tennessee. Thank you, Bryce, for the question. Now, as far as the ceiling for the Tennessee Titans, I mean, haven't really gone over the schedule quite as much, but what I will say is, could they win 9 or 10 games next year? Yeah, I could see that happening. You also could see some other things happening, but also I will tell you, you look at the last season, there were some games where they were right there. A play or two, they actually could win that game, but they just weren't able to produce those game-winning plays. Now, in this season, could that change? Very much could change. So, I'm going to put a ceiling at roughly 10 wins for the Tennessee Titans next season. I mean, who knows, though? You also do have some players that potentially could be that difference between 1 or 2 wins on this team. Thank you, Bryce, for that question. I got another question from let's see, there's this question here. I'm sorry. It's from Galen J. from Little Rock, Arkansas. Does Anthony Richardson have a place with the Colts. Now, there has been, basically the Colts have given him permission to seek a trade. So at this point, I don't think he has a future with the Indianapolis Colts. I will say that it will be good to see him get a fresh start somewhere else through the injuries and just the performance. It's probably time to get a fresh start somewhere. Now, where are those places? I'm going to go over those maybe in my next episode. But definitely, I think it's time for a fresh start for Anthony Richardson, and I just think it's time in Indy for him to go. This is. All right, and the last question I have, let me go to that one. Let's see. Last question. What do the Titans need to address in the NFL draft? This is from Parnell SP from South Orange, New Jersey. And in regards to that, I would say they need to address, of course, continue to build depth on the O-line. That's always the thing. They're doing that more in free agency, I will say there. But also, let's take a look at the linebacker position. Let's build some more depth there if you were the Tennessee Titans, because, of course, you're switching to more of a 4-3 defense. You're going to have a lot of moving pieces. You do need depth at that linebacker position. Right now, of course, the two starting inside linebackers last year were Sandra Gray and Cody Barton. You got James Williams there, but beyond James Williams, there's nothing else. So you probably need to add a little bit more depth there. Maybe some depth to add at safety, some young depth perhaps. And of course, you can never have enough cornerbacks. So they did sign 3 this offseason, by the way, and Marcus Harris is there. But in the past, you've seen injuries happen at that cornerback position, and the Titans going to sometimes 3rd and maybe 4th people in the 4th depth chart guys, which is a lot. So you can never have enough depth at the cornerback position, which it is a passing league, by the way. So that would be my thinking there. Of course, the running back position, that's something to talk about there as well. And we'll see where they go as the season or as the draft nears, I will say. So those are my thoughts there. Thank you for your questions there. That was Bobby W. from Worcester, Ohio. That is Bryce L. from Clarksville, Tennessee. That is Galen J. from Little Rock, Arkansas. And that is Parnell SP from South Orange, New Jersey. I want to thank you all for your questions. And that is a wrap on this show. For those that don't know, my name is Mike Patton. I am the host and producer of this show. Of course, you can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at MikePatton82. That's MikePatton 82. You can also find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. And you can also find Touring the AFC South on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. And also, you can find Touring the AFC South on the Mike Patton Network on YouTube. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. We're out. Peace.